times through. That's why I'm raw times two. Half-past despicable, last man to bring it through. Fast raps and critical stats, analytical slap. I'm hitting you smack. I'm sticking you smack lips to stack chips, all with the lyrical technique. For party crashes, liquor spilling mayhem. Punk cops to play them, super bitches to slay them. It's all serious biz, no time.
Welcome to episode 76 of Breakup Gaming Society. This is a podcast about board games, booze, and hip-hop recorded just for you in Starkville, Colorado by me, your host and best friend, the Colonel Hector Bravado. But wait a minute, you might say, how is it that you, a semi-rural podcaster with 3 listeners, came to be my friend? Well, it's simple. You've been on a slow and incremental, but no less hideous, tailspin for decades. This is the terminus, and my voice is on the loudspeaker, announcing service has been suspended. There are no more stops. Embrace it. Drop your mobile phone in a wall urinal and sit down and take your damn turn already. The crickets in Starkville are playing the scratch solo from Public Enemy's Raise the Roof. Yes, this is where you're supposed to be. Sit down, because we're going to do some booze, board games, and hip-hop, namely, Drink of the Week. We're going to talk about Larceny, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, and a Stampede, Colorado Gold Lager in back of it. Then, Game of the Week, Tin Helm versus Dustrunner. I now own 2 titles from Grey Gnome Games' quirky, handmade mini RPG adventures in a tin. I've played them both a lot, and I'm going to compare them for you. You should own at least one of them, that's the takeaway. Track of the Week. We're going to feature a glowing, if not heralded, victory lap by true school legend J Live. It was produced by Jazzy Jeff. It will inspire you to go on, I promise. Anyway, let's get it going. Drink of the Week coming up.
Slap, I'm hitting you smack. I'm sticking you smack lips to stack chips, all with the lyrical technique.
So it's still shot in a beer season here in Starkville. If you've been following along, I've been on a quest to find the best $28 bottle of brown liquor available at Trinidad, Colorado's various liquor stores. So last time I was down at Tire Shop Liquors, I told Ian about my quest. He motions at a bottle of Larceny, which was A, $29, close enough, B, something I never tried. So I paired it up over the course of a week with a 15-pack of a beer that was also new to me. Talk about the brown liquor first. Larceny, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Let's talk about how packaging and timing impact my perception of a whiskey. The last 2 whiskeys we featured were well-traveled legacy working man brands, Old Granddad and George Dickel 12. Larceny was one of those that appeared around the time that shopping for whiskey turned from an easy pick-your-own-adventure book to a lesson in bewilderment. In the 90s, it was easy. Pick up any one of the 4 big, well-made, very well-marketed craft brands that appeared all over the place. Basil Hayden, Booker's, Knob Creek, or Baker's. Because they had distinct characters, were heads and shoulders over well pours, and made my try-hard 28-year-old ass look discerning to anyone who happened to be paying attention. But by the 2000s, my God, bourbon shelf exploded. All the labels were brilliant. Every one had a mythology on the label about limestone water or bootleggers, and they were all good. Larceny is one of them. You'll probably remember it. The bottle has a distinctive oversized keyhole icon and was ostensibly inspired by a federal agent who liked to steal bottles during the Prohibition or something. Ha ha. Glad you had fun being a lush while people went to prison. Anyway, the takeaway here, you know what? It's good. It all is. It's smooth front to back. It has none of the weird feisty gestures that Old Granddad or Dickel 12 have. The burn and the sugar are all perfectly balanced. It's generally rich on the tongue. I drained the whole thing in about 3 sits, liked it, and don't remember a single thing it said. It didn't feel so much distilled as triangulated, an inoffensive meet you in the middle of Kentucky drinks. So, would I drink it again? Absolutely. It's solid. It's a nice sip and doesn't have any obvious flaws. Would I seek it out? Probably not, because there are 30 competitors on the shelf doing about the same thing, except with different label designs. The real surprise for these sessions was the beer. I want to just, say goodbye to Larceny and talk about that, which is Stampede Colorado Gold Lager. As you know, I'm a fan of lagers and stouts, and as far as lagers go, it's all about Coors, the banquet beer. I like slugging it in back of a warm American whiskey. I just do. But if it were regularly on the shelves around here for the price I got it, I'd throw Coors out the window for a steady supply of Stampede Colorado Gold Lager. I just happened to walk into Safeway the week they were closing it out. My cheap ass did some head math and figured out the 15-pack was $1 a can after the discount. So I got it. And what a delight. I guess it shouldn't have been a surprise. Avery Brewing was always one of my go-tos when I was a regular shopper of Colorado craft brews. I used to work about a mile from their South Boulder tasting room. That's how I fell in love with the Reverend, their extremely strong Belgian quadruple ale. White Rascal's always been killer too, so I pulled it off the shelf. My God, what a pull. It was everything I love about Coors, plus obvious extra care. It's creamy where Coors is thin. That moment when the carbonation synergizes with the barley and hops high note on the palate, it's a smooth micro descent of a dozen little waypoints where Coors only has 2 notes to play. Only my favorite, stouts I drank over the winter were this friendly. It was just delightful. I hope it's only failed here among the schnorrers in Trinidad and not market-wide, because it's perfect. And based on what's hanging over my belt, I better start having a lot less of them. Let's do Game of the Week. What do you think?
Slap, slap, I'm hitting you, smack, smack, I'm sticking you, smack, lips to stack chips, all with the lyric.
So in my left hand, I've got the game called Tin Helm, and in my right hand, in my right hand, I've got a copy of Dustrunner. I also have a gently accelerating Coors and Whiskey Buzz, but here's the question of the day. Which one am I going to play? Now, in context, they're both in tins about the size of a pack of smokes. They're both designed by Jason Glover of Grey Gnome Games. They're both brisk and lovable, and, true of everything I've seen by this designer, they win on the visual handshake and the pace. No matter what title you end up with from his tin series, and I do believe every hobby gamer should have at least one, you're going to get the haptic tickle of the bite-sized discovery and danger, the charm of miniaturization, all at a high level of craftsmanship. There's some candy cubes, some tiny dice emerge, along with card after card of crisp, high-contrast illustration by Glover. Sometimes he has help, I forget the name, with apologies. And he has an eye for giving shop-worn fantasy and sci-fi characters a memorable note. You get the misspellings on the instruction cards, written in a loquacious tone. They feel like they've been placed in your hand directly from his. They feel like they come from somewhere distinct, which is one of the things that drew me to them when I first started seeing Glover's posts on Twitter a couple of years ago. So, first up, I'm going to talk about the newest acquisition, Dustrunner. I've played it a couple dozen times now. It's a post-apocalyptic race. Now, you're a courier with an important piece of purloined tech and a card that you can semi-customize using various configurations of 3 double-sided cards. You race across another row of cards with a Wasteland Raider mini looming in the rear view. If you get to the endpoint base, you've won. If the Raider mini catches you or you lose your health in map encounters, it's a wrap. The Raiders get your toy and you get turned into beef jerky. So you've got the squeeze of keeping daylight between you and the Raider truck while managing your health, ammo, and fuel through several surprise encounters. Other Raiders, these are the kind that can be fought and defeated. Spy bots, dust worms, and helpful replenishment car mod or extra movement waypoints. My strategy was to try to keep at least a card's length between myself and the primary raider at all costs. While I was sometimes hurting for fuel, that gave me the cushion, even when I often ran out of fuel and had to fish for more with unwanted encounters, to score the wins I did. But I died a lot. The primary raider truck caught me often, There's a track where you notch victory points for an end game score and a stipulation that you can burn your VPs in hand to bend the fortunes of combat your way if you're in a jam. I never took that option. The scoring for the game didn't interest me. Dead or alive is the only thing that mattered on my report, so I defaulted to my own hardcore mode. No victory points to dull the cruel edges of fate. If I died, I just shrugged, nodded sadly at the wadded Dustrunner vehicle in my mind's eye, and performed the game's extremely easy setup all over again. I easily got 10 games in my first session. And I had fun. Glover put a different twist on encounters and combat resolution here, keeping the you have to pick something behind one of the doors doctrine, but substituting a series of card pulls for combat resolution instead of dice, and making each encounter card a single combat or location resolution instead of the multiple feature in a room thing that he did in Tin Helm. It shares a lot of the same DNA as Tin Helm, the first Grey Gnome game I got, which we're going to talk about now in service of comparing the two. So Tin Helm. When I saw Glover developing the components and package for Tin Helm on Twitter, it was one of those I gotta have it moments. I'm not particularly drawn to dungeon crawls or fantasy settings, but the execution of it told me that this would be a unique creature in my modest collection and a good seasoning to have on the spice rack of experience. And it was. Tin Helm puts you in the boots of one of 4 character classes, comboed with 4 professions. Your task: brawl, rest, and hunt your way through a dungeon with the goal of finding 3 shards that will lift a curse. You set up a row of cards and cubes that track your health, items, and other stats. Then you dive in. You have 5 trips through the dungeon to gather all 3 shards or fail the endeavor. And like Dustrunner, dying somewhere along the way also means you take the L. Every turn, you have to choose between resolving the first or second room in front of you out of a big pile of rooms, and there's icons on the front of each card giving you some sense of what category of trials or goodies exist there. Unlike Dustrunner, combat, which happens quite a bit, is resolved with 2 dice, whose results are subtracted from each other and then modified by monster abilities, special items, or your decision to spend precious energy to deliver bigger shots. There are several ways to stumble across one of these shards, so the general proposition is managing your character's health and resources with enough common sense to hit a variety of locations, making sure the grind of frequent combat doesn't extinguish you. Both of these games are simple, but the decisionscape of Tin Helm has a few wrinkles that provide the difference for me. The little world and its locations have just enough extra texture and variety that, to snag my consciousness for that extra layer of immersion and investment. It's still a beer and pretzels dungeon game, or a beer and whiskey dungeon game in my case, but there are nights here in Starkville that I'm not in the mood for anything else. Cursing the Doom Skull, hailing the Pigman for a turnip for shard trade, or hitting the shrine when you've got your favor track high. These are all part of a carousel of just enough decisions and "oh you rat" or "oh I did it" surprises for me. Which invites the functional question: will Dustrunner steal any table time from Tin Helm? I don't think so. For me, Tin Helm still wins on the first love factor. It's not going to amaze you with its elegance or puzzle solving. It wins on pace and vibes with a couple bright string plucks of idiosyncratic kitchen table novelty. You can solve it if you like, but I'm here for the groove if you follow me. And the little extra fuss and detail in Tin Helm's action gives me that groove. I still maintain that at least one Tin series game should be an option for any solo shelf. He's put out a ton of these. But I'm going to stick with chasing shards in Tin Helm when I've got the appetite for Jason Clover's disarming solo dungeon crawl morsels. Speaking of indie creators who deserve more attention, we're about to take a look at a cut by J Live. Here comes Track of the Week.
Slap, slap, I'm hitting you smack, smack, I'm sticking you smack, lips to stack chips, all with the lyrical technique.
Hip-hop is a boundless source of joy for me, which is why I never bothered generating a take on the unavoidable Drake and Kendrick Lamar shit. Where's the joy in that? Everybody already knew who had the most artistic equity coming into that squabble, and we all knew who was leaving with it. Speaking of artistic equity, today is a track from an MC who probably isn't a millionaire but deserves to be. I'm talking about full-hearted MC, and at one point, I think also an English teacher in Brooklyn, J Live, who could rap and DJ, by the way. Here are the market realities of the time during which J Live did his best work. Late 90s, early 2000s, true school artists like J Live had a smaller and smaller plate to eat off every day. The mid late 90s turntablism surge was losing steam. You had Dirty South and the rise of the Neptune and Timberland and Magoo style production, and you had crunk going on, and if you saw J Live, it was probably at a small venue with not a big crowd of people. Although if you did, I'm jealous. This song is called "Practice," and it's sad, fierce, beautiful, and proud. There was a lot of indie stuff around this time that talked trash about flashy club rap, which is easy to shit on, and I agree with them for the most part, but nobody makes a case for the affirmative better than J Live does here. His bars are witty, supple, full of hard-won learning, and brimming with technique and authenticity. See if you agree.
If you hating me, cause all you do is process and file. Jealous because I get to make beats, spinning freestyle as if I haven't had to work in a while. Like I ain't shedding blood, sweat, tears, stomach acid and bile. Like my workload isn't unbelievable. CEO, COO, accounts payable and receivable. Chief marketeer and manager, sales rep, tour van driver, baggage handler, shit. Like I ain't trying to outsource and delegate. How else you think I ever upgrade or elevate? But at this point in time, I got two options. Get it done right myself or get relegated back to a spot where I do it for fun in my spare time.
Yeah. As an indie creator who feels like he's getting better and better, and who seems to contend with the irony that the more I know and learn and have to share, the less people want to hear it, these kinds of rappers sustain me and speak to me in some way. You do it for the craft, kind of because you have to, even when the big checks aren't there, or any check at all for that matter. And I also want to talk about this pairing. Now, this came off an album produced by Jazzy Jeff, and heads know Jazzy Jeff is one of the best producers and DJs out there. And this kind of album, the engineering is so milky. Even when he uses familiar samples and drum breaks, it just drips with relaxed reassurance that can only be won with the kind of pure dedication to craft that J Live is talking about. Even the least thrilling tracks on these albums are very, very good. But I also highly recommend a couple others here, which we're going to talk about it. So here he is, Jazzy Jeff, the Philly legend, doing sort of late quasi-victory lap and sharing the stage with a mix of golden era veterans, taking a show you how it's done lap right before they're all drowned out by crunk, and also sharing the stage with what was then some exciting new talent. Specifically, please listen to Super Gene by Jean Grey, someone who, again, I knew about, but am just now really exploring. They called her the genius, and I think they were right. She was astounding, and it also showed how Jazzy Jeff's touch could make even the well-traveled samples leap out of the speaker with new life. Check it out.
I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for.
So there you go, small creators of the world. Sometimes you go back to the mic, the drawing pad, the dojo, the game table, long after you realize not only are you not going to be a superstar, you might not even get a tank of gas with a month's worth of work. And it didn't stop J Live. Nor should it stop you, nor will it stop me. Because you wake up and realize something's missing in your life if you don't do it. And here's the thing, you look at what you did last year and then look at what you dragged yourself to create this year, and you think, shit, I'm getting pretty good at this. And you know somehow that you stand up against some universal marker somewhere. There's an honor in that. So long live J-Live, long live you. May you fight long and well. Oh, and as long as we're talking about telling great stories to an audience of dozens, don't forget that until the end of May, you still have time to enter Breakup Gaming Society's Board Games and Debauchery Essay Contest. The details are on the blog at breakupgamingsociety.com or the announcement section of rascal.news. And thank you, Rascal, for including my humble announcement. Ever get this feeling that nobody's listening to you? I am. Peel that first player marker off your face that got embedded there when you crashed face down on the game table and tell me a damn story. Starkville is waiting. That's the end of the show. I am your best friend, the Colonel Hector Bravado, saying, may you fight long and well.
Oh yes, wankers, my DJ's got his ultimates out. This track's called Champ, but I call it Tramp. Tramp. You tramp, mate. Your bed's full of crusty bits.